Now, the modern age has ushered in an era of rapid changes in almost every sphere of human life, with radical changes in the environment we live in and increased life longevity. It remains to be seen how such alterations will affect future health. We have an amazing panel discussion lined up. Let's all welcome together the moderator, Dr. Ian McFadden, President and CEO of HRM International.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. We're going to have, let me have my colleagues please come down. I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you as well. We have a very distinguished panel here from different aspects of the industry, all from different countries as well. So I think this is going to be a very enlightening discussion as we really talk a lot about the future of health, particularly population health, and how the various industries impact that. So with that, I'm going to have George come up. I think what we'll do is do some brief introductions. First of all, I'm Jan McFadden, or Ian McFadden. I go by both. I'm the CEO of HRM International. We're a turnaround management firm. We basically go into different hospitals that hire us to basically turn around the operations, to make them more profitable, develop better outcomes, basically performance improvement initiatives. We basically specialize in a lot of revenue generation, as well as quality, cultural improvement, and patient experience improvement. So we do all the gamut of what it takes to make a hospital better. My company has been around for about 5 years. I really never marketed it. I don't even have a website. I'm working on that. We should have one up next week sometime. But basically, you know, I go into places through word of mouth that really need help, and we bring in resources to get them all turned around. So that's kind of what, you know, my perspective is going to be coming from a hospital administrator type of position. And I'm going to be working with guys who are from all aspects of the industry. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves as well. So we'll start with Jared, since he's got it.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Hi, thank you for having me here. My name is Jorrit Ebbe. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a pharmacist by training, but after 10 years in Big Pharma, I decided 6 years ago to go into home care and technology. And based in the Netherlands, we are a new company that's now for 3 years helping other healthcare organizations transform their healthcare into more digital and more to home. We do research for a lot of technologies to prove the value for patients.
Hello friends, good afternoon. I'm Manish Rawal. Basically, I'm a founder and CEO of Thomasons, which is into medical clothing. So we design clothing which has antimicrobial, useful for the patients for faster recovery and comfort. Before starting Thomasons, I did my bachelor's and master's in US, worked with top 3 medical device companies, and came back to India to start the journey in medical clothing, as it is something which is everybody in the hospital environment or even in the home care has to touch it and, you know, be around it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yasser Al-Ubaidi. I'm founder and CEO of Sudir Pharmaceutical Company, which is the first manufacturing company for oncology in the GCC area. We are producing most of the generics for chemotherapies and target therapies, and we are looking for biologic the next step. We are a startup company, which is our vision is the unmet need of our market, especially on the GCC, on the MENA. My background are pharmacist. I worked in hospital most of my life, and I get master and PhD, and I changed to quality management. I'm working more in quality management in healthcare. But my dream and my mission in life that I want to do something that create value for our community in Saudi Arabia. That's why we started our company in 2014. And, now we are producing, and our products are in the market in Saudi Arabia, also in GCC. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Mandar Kodgule. In 2016, we started a company called as IFAH Pharma. It's a contract research development company based out of Mumbai, India. And we are developing quality niche generics in the solid oral and in the injectable space for our clients in US, Europe, GCC, Latin America markets. By profession, I'm a pharmacist. I'm a PhD in medicinal chemistry with about 25 years of experience in R&D, intellectual property, corporate strategy, and also in business development.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saeed Ahmed. I'm a pediatrician by profession. I'm the CEO and founder of Food Balance Technology, which is a pediatric company based out of Sydney, Australia. Originally, I'm from Bangladesh and currently living in Australia for the last 10 years. My business has been around for a bit more than 3.5 years, and I have been working in this industry for over 10 years. So we provide specialty footwear services for people who need help with their pain alleviation, improve their balance and stability towards their overall well-being. We work closely with all the major public hospitals in Sydney in the high-risk food clinic, primarily focusing on patients with diabetes to manage their food ulcer and ulcer prevention and preventing from potential amputation. Also, I'm one of the committee members for National Association of Diabetic Center, which is the parent body of all diabetic-related organizations in Australia, and one of the authors to recommend the high-risk food services standards in Australia. So we see patients both from hospitals and also from private clinics to help with their especially footwear, and I'll be happy to discuss further and give any answers to your questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. As you see, we have a diverse panel. We have our guys here from different industries, different countries. Basically, we're represented with Australia, India, Saudi Arabia, United States, India, and the Netherlands. So we have quite a bit of perspective in terms of location. And we're going to talk a little bit about our industries and how we can, and how they impact population health. So let me first start with our pharmacy proponents here. We have Dr. Ahmed here with is head of a pharmacy manufacturer. Dr. Mandar also runs a pharmacy company that specializes in compliance. So let me start with you, gentlemen. First, Dr. Ahmed, tell us a little bit about what you all are doing to strengthen personalized medications and, in terms of your manufacturing for the future of the patient and how that's really impacting their health status.
Yes. The pharmaceutical industry is really, it's a little bit complicated industry that because it's well over-regulated. Most of the innovation, it needs a lot of clinical studies, a lot of investment in order to have innovative drug in the market. Usually in our situation on the generic, 90% of the patients now, especially in the United States, for example, they're using cheap generic, which is mostly for chronic diseases. But for the advanced diseases now, we have a lot of biologic, which is on the future of gene therapy and personalized medicine. We still, in the pharma industry, we're still on the area of producing medications for the patients in general, some of the companies that they are doing some sort of research to individualize. The problem of this industry is very expensive, and that's why the cost of healthcare are increasing in yearly basis up to 10% in certain countries because of the cost of the medications. Our mission as a company to reduce the healthcare, we have three important triangle that we are moving on. It's producing high quality products in affordable prices and deliver on time. That because the delivery for certain patients we have in cancer patients, I started this company because I saw the suffering of the patients when the delay of certain medications, which is not of the cost of the medication because of manufacturing, especially the old chemotherapies. That's why we try to contribute to our community that we need to deliver a high quality product with affordable prices. We reduced the cost of these medications last year is 50% from the brand. That's mean 50% of almost more than 100 million that the healthcare can provide it to more advanced therapies to the patients who really need it. But that's why our mission is trying to help our community that first secure the medications for them with affordable prices that it can afford for all the patients. That some patients they cannot have the treatment because if it's expensive. Our mission to reduce the cost of these medications by produce it locally. But this is what we are doing. But when you go to the advancement now in pharma, it's really moving slower than another industry. If you go to like whatever industry that you see that the advancement is more there because of the regulatory bodies in a lot of countries, they have a lot of restrictions on that. That's why the advancements are slowly into the market, into the patients. If you see, for example, the data that we have it from the patients, like pharmacogenomic, for example, we cannot use it now because we have to go to the regulatory bodies to take the approval, and we need to have a clinical studies, which is costing a lot. But that's why we have a lot of advancement. But if we want to have it to the patients, that we need to go, having a lot of steps in order to reach to the patients. And this is really the challenge that we have it on pharma market.
Do you agree with that, Dr. Madar?
Yeah, fully. I think the main challenge currently worldwide in terms of pharma is the affordability of the medicine and reach of the medicines. Sorry. So these two, and again, quality I believe most of you have read the book Bottle of Lies, though, there are a lot of, in Hindi we call it masala, or there is a lot of stuff which is already there, which is a little bit bloated up. But yes, there are concerns about quality. There are concerns about data integrity in pharma. There are concerns about overall compliance, quality management systems for the products. And in spite of all that, the real, what healthcare industry is looking at is three things: availability of the product, affordability of the product, and also the quality of the product. So in most of the geographies of the world, where if you look at Africa, if you look at India, if you look at certain parts of Asia, Latin America, it's the affordability which is more important. Also, the availability is important. Most of the medicines are not available. I think moving forward, what I see a major impact is going to come from patient compliance. So if the 1970s era was to reduce the mortality because a lot of infections and a lot of, these things were catching up, 80s, 90s was more about coming up with new medicines to treat diseases. 2000 was reducing the side effects of the drug. And now I think we are moving into an era where most of these things are achieved.
especially for majority of the diseases, and it's patient compliance which is playing important role in the future. Patient compliance, when I'm saying it's not only from a pharma point of view, but drug delivery point of view. You have to deliver the drug through a painless route. So for example, in injectables, how you're going to create painless injections, or can you make product available which is not absorbed by oral route, has to be given by injectable? Can you still make it available through a nasal route? Whether the cost will be beneficial over there, whether there will be a compliance from the patient point of view. How can you make patients stay at the hospital less by giving some devices which will help in terms of, post-management of surgery at home? Can you do that? I think Jared will talk more about it. But those are some of the areas, according to me. I think pharmacist, as a formulation scientist, those are the challenging areas in the future. How I'm going to deliver the product to the patient in a more compliant way, so that he takes the medicines and still the cost of the medicine, and it is available and cost of the medicine is very low.
So so basically, we can look forward to a future with less costly medicine.
I am not really sure with the biotechs that are going to come up. Again, the cost is a perspective, right? I mean, if somebody can sell sofosbuvir or those tablets which treat hepatitis C at $1,000 a pill, at 99% cure. So, and then there are discounts and all those things. Your insurance is ready to pay for that. Well, good. But if that same medicine is made available in $2, which most of the generic companies in India are doing anyways. So the $1,000 tablet in India is now available something close to about $10 or $20. And as more competition is going to come, it's going to go down. So I think generics on one hand are trying to reduce a lot of cost. At the same time, the brand companies have to take that into view. For example, look at biosimilar, and I think previously also I think Manish raised these questions that, if one biosimilar is approved for 9 indications, and if a biotech product is approved for 9 indications, you come up with a biosimilar of that, you're doing just one clinical trial against one particular indication. Is it good to give them approval for the 9 other indications? Is it going to be substitutable, or you have to create a brand, promote that brand along with it? So there are so many things related on the cost part, which one really has to, maneuver this through. And as Dr. Yasser said over here, that regulatory agencies have to be much more, precise in terms of coming out with a lot of regulations. Then the cost can be looked at in a different way.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much for that. I do also want to get into impacts of apparel and for the consumer and the patient. And Mr. Saeed, who runs a chronic foot apparel company that treats chronic patients, diabetes patients, can we look forward to more of that in terms of protecting the patient with their, and disease management in the future?
Yeah. So, for example, one disease like diabetes, around the world, around 380 million people have diabetes. And we know around in every 20 seconds, somewhere in the world, a limb is lost due to diabetes. And among them, 85% can be prevented. It is proven. And the cause of the diabetic foot ulceration is 79% due to inappropriate footwear. We know footwear is a very important part of our life, but inappropriate footwear can be a big problem of the life as well, especially in the patient with diabetes or patient with vascular conditions, with arthritis. So the main challenge is here the awareness from the clinician perspective and the patient perspective. So clinicians sometimes they don't have the access to the proper clinicians who can supply, and also don't know what product is suitable for what kind of conditions. And then patient struggle to accept the orthopedic footwear. And also the manufacturer point of view, there is a fashion item, so it's the fashion aspects sometimes it doesn't exist. So it's a mix of a lot of things that is prohibiting for the wider use of that. So from the clinician point of view, as long as they have the access and they can ensure that this is the right product, and there are technology at this moment around the like in-shoe plantar pressure measurement. So we know role of footwear is pressure offloading in terms of healing the ulcer or relieving the pain. It's a mechanical pressure. So there's technology available now that you can actually measure the pressure, whether barefoot and also inside the footwear, how much pressure you have been able to offload. That can indicate like how successful the footwear is going to be. And also it is important for the patient to understand they have the perceived value that, okay, this is a special shoe I have to wear and what the benefit I'm going to get. If they can keep them ulcer free, that's the inspiration for them to use them. And for the clinicians also, it's an inspiration. And in terms of, as Dr. Mandar said, the adherence is a problem across the whole clinical field. The patient sometimes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they don't adhere to the prescribed therapy. So in footwear, even it is more, because it's a big change for a patient to accept something they are not used to, and sometimes being a footwear, they need to change their whole wardrobe to adapt to the new footwear. So that becomes a challenging also. And they have other comorbidities like arthritis in their hand, they cannot put the shoes on, they have obesity, they cannot bend down, cannot use the footwear. So increasing the adherence and also to ensure actually how long they are wearing the prescribed shoes, that's also important. So there are new technology coming to put sensors in the shoe that can be measured, and the clinicians can determine how long they have worn the shoes. But these things are becoming more and popular now in the real clinical setup. And hopefully we'll see better implementation of this wearable technology and better education for the patient and the clinicians to improve in this area.
Okay, so it can help with the lifestyle in the future.
So
same with in terms of
excuse me, Manish here. Great discussion on pricing, access, extrapolation, and how we can make those medication available to the patient population where the affordability is not there. Let me do the reverse engineering where the cost lies. As the global community, we do not have decided what I call is harmonized packaging of medicine. 30% cost of the medicine is in packaging because different color, different box size, different cutter, all of that. So we did one study where we changed the font from Calibri to the Times New Roman, and your ink cost goes down by 30%. Second, the picking and packing error, what we call LASA, look alike, sound alike. So if you look at Pfizer medicine, every box have a purple bar on the side. That color costs alone is 10% of that printing packaging. Then each country's regulatory is not being internationally harmonized for approval process. So same medicine, say for example paracetamol, if I'll apply in Australia, I'll be paying $120,000 for the approval fee. Same thing will go for the EMEA, US FDA, Gulf countries, India. Why cannot we can have a global standard where all these internationally harmonized regulatory agencies provide the specification, yes, this is the INN, these need to be specific range of the variation, harmonized packaging will be done for that country, and we save the cost. So I'll give you last one. Lignocaine, yeah? Very common anesthesia. Its API, active product ingredient, is $4,000 a kilo. You can make 1 million tablets for $4,000. So cost is not lying in APIs. Cost is lying in the wastage being made at the different plants, smaller batches, and being different to each country and each continent. Thank you.
I'll just packaging. Regarding packaging, why first we are looking at packaging as a very critical aspect is because that's what decides the product stability. And if you move across the regions, like in Middle East, the temperatures can, Middle East and many parts of the deserts, if you look at, the temperatures can cross 42 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Celsius, in that range. And in some of the areas like Canada, Russia, the temperatures can go down to less than 5 degrees Celsius. Having said that, many countries stick to a specific form of packaging because of all these stability conditions. Every country requires a very different type of regulations. Because of that, ICH did it's trying its level best since 1989, and there was a big debate happened in 2013 also in ICH conference, which was held in Orlando, Miami. And over there also, there was no conclusion could arrive at some type of harmonization because of these varying conditions of, not just the temperature, but it's also the atmospheric pollution, carbon dioxide content, oxygen content, the heat, the dust, which is there in a lot of tropical countries. So that's the reason. And if you look at it, US has accepted to a more bottle type of packing. Europe, if you see, or if you see Australia, they don't want bottles. They want everything in strip, like in India also. So bottle becomes very easy to, handle because the cost is less if you try to get into that area. But the outer card, so primary packaging, yes, but secondary packaging, again, depends on the company, depends on, so in 2016, there were new guidelines that were added of track and trace. So even if you do everything now in order to have track and trace, the cost is going to go up because you want to track it properly. So it's not just one dimension of cost, there are so many dimensions of cost. And if I tell you that overall cost, where there is if you look at the invoiced cost or ex-factory cost to a distributor and directly when it goes to the patient, there is a huge difference. Invoiced cost is not normally more than 10% of the MRP. So there are a lot of leakages which are happening after that. That's what is in future, if somebody looks at those challenges in terms of distribution chain, in terms of all those things, I know some time back, Mr. Ambani wanted to start, everything supply chain of, he couldn't do it because he is such a strong lobby out there. Even Reliance Group like Reliance could not do it. Try doing it in US. It's impossible to beat the McKessons and, Cardinals and of the world. So I think what we need to do is we need to make it available, affordable at a manufacturer price, and then somebody has to take the insurance load on that. That's the solution.
That's a good point about the cost efficiencies. Is it in terms of the apparel of the patient? Are we looking at cost implications there for the future?
Yeah, so what we saw was one of the things which is medical textile, it's getting sidelined. Nobody is looking into it. And there is so much we can do with it. So one of the example, just in UK, they are moving towards disposable. Everything they want to. But in 38 hours, they see 1 million patients. And to burn that 1 million disposable gowns, it's such a bad thing for our environment, CO2 footprint. So what we can do there, so what we have done as a company in Thomasons is we make material or medical textiles which is antibacterial. So, it can kill the bacteria, gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria, and still you can have the reusability. You can use it for 100 times, and you don't have to, hurt our environment. Secondly, one thing which we saw in the whole ecosystem of hospitals, they want to improve the patient experience. Everybody is talking about, patient happiness, patient satisfaction, but nobody is looking into the patient clothing. It has been the same old gown which everybody will wear. Half of the battle gets done right there when they are given the gown, because they now feel like as a patient. They are given a number, they are not called by the name anymore, and then their whole journey is through that number. So what we have done is how we can give those patients dignity and comfort at the same level. So we have strategically placed zippers on the different central lines. So depending on the patient type, only that zippers need to be opened, so they get the much needed comfort, privacy, and they feel as if they are treated as humans and not patients. And thirdly, for some of the patients like in ICU, dialysis and chemo patients, what we saw was most of these patients feel cold, shivery, and they use the energy for maintaining the body temperature. Ideally, they should be using it for recovery. They should recover faster. They should be out of the hospital faster. So there we are using smart fabric to maintain the body temperature. So if it is cold, it can increase the resistance of the fabric. If it is warm, it can reduce the resistance. The idea is throughout the session, the temperature should be maintained. So that's what we have been doing, keeping future in the mind, what all is needed from the patient perspective as of now. Yeah.
It's very interesting that the impact of just apparel can have on the patient's outcome of health. In terms of one of the things that we learned earlier is that the patient is empowered more so than ever before and will continue to be in the future. And I think what we want to see is patients being matriculated to go home as soon as they can. When they go home, how do they transition, Jared?
Yeah, well, of course, everybody wants to be at home, also when you are a patient, and that's the thing is, we heard it yesterday from the startups that were over here as well. We enable startups to focus on one single product, one single form of technology, and we heard a lot of new technologies over here as well. But for the patient, they have to integrate all those different types of technology from different companies, either tech companies or healthcare companies, and still be able to live at home. And that's getting more complicated day by day for them, and also for the nurses that are either at home or in a hospital. So we had that example of Dr. Mandar, that to administer oncology therapy at home, you can create great new technology, but then the nurse stays in the hospital and the technology and the oncology medication is at home, and the patient doesn't know how to do it, so they call a nurse that is actually somewhere around the house, and that's in a different healthcare company, which is the case in the Netherlands. So there has to be some new cooperations between healthcare companies as well, and between tech companies, and all around that single patient. And that patient is getting more struggles every single day because it's getting more complex. So the new future will be that they are at home, but it also will ask a lot of cooperations between guys like us and people like you to enable the patient to be at home as well.
Okay, so you've heard various perspectives from the pharmacy, from the apparel perspective, from the technology perspective, the patient going from the hospital into the home. What we're anticipating in the future is increase in health, but are we really getting there after everything we've heard from previous sessions, even up to now? And I'll entertain questions from the audience for any of us.
We want to add the future things that would happening to the pharmaceutical, which is we have a lot of data that the patients can see it by devices that can be done by scan or under the skin. They have something called bully pills that the patient, he will have like 3D printing machine. He can have his medications at home that he can produce it, because we have, for example, in our country that most of adults, they have more than 5 to 6 medications used per day. And these medications are really having an effect on what is like warfarin, for example. You have to see the INR and the blood pressure, the glucose in the blood, that you can produce your individual capsule that you can take it once per day. This is the future of pharma. We don't know where it will go, but I think the 3D printing is one of the issues which will come to pharmaceutical. Unfortunately, I don't see the regulatory side, also the company side, they are ready for this kind of technology which will come. We have a lot of issues on the future that hopefully that we reduce the cost and improve the quality of life of the patients, because what we are looking for is not just improve the situation of the disease, more than that the quality of life of the patients is more important than the disease itself. That's why the patient will be involved in future in all, even to produce and manufacture his own medications.
Any questions from the audience? One of the things that we also are looking at is the change in lifestyle for the future. As you've seen the patient, slowly patient care is being handled more in the home with technology applications. It's becoming hopefully more reasonable in terms of expense. I can tell you insurance companies are forcing patients out of the hospitals unless it's a very, very severe chronic condition. We're basically looking at the patient getting more help and being treated more at home and hopefully generating better outcomes. At the end of the day, it's all about the outcomes. Yes, ma'am. It's a question back
there. Yeah, so well, in the Netherlands, you have a couple of universities that actually teach technical medicine. So then you do, half of it is normal medicine and half of it is technical studies to be able to build new technical solutions. And we developed with one of the lower schools a special digital program for them as well, to enable the young students to do more digital in their education, but also to be able to prepare them for the future and to be able to use actually the technology in their work. So in the Netherlands, that's going on.
Another thing I wanted to talk about future is that, very interestingly, these e-medicines has come up, which is going to, at least in India, there are a lot of pros of that, cons of that. Certain ruling has come up. You have to distribute it through a local this thing. Imagine, just like, your Amazons and eBays, they come into this area. Because if Pfizer is a $40 billion, $50 billion, $60 billion company, McFadden in US is $150 billion company. It's a distributor. They don't make medicines, they just distribute medicines. That's a huge business. And if Amazon and all these guys come over there, look at the impact it is going to create on the healthcare cost. At the same time, a lot of pharmacists are going to go without job. So the future is very interesting, in terms of reducing the cost. It's easy to get into, as doctor said, 3D printing at home. But there are a lot of quality measures. Pharma is a regulated area. If something happens to that patient after consuming that medicine, who's going to be responsible? So there are a lot of things that at the same time, if you're looking at, avoiding your expiry dates, 3D medicine is the best thing to happen. If somebody needs certain type of medicine in a certain combination, you give him that, and personalized medicine point of view, that's a great thing. So are we going to create these 3D printers at small places everywhere? Or you can have one community center wherein you can put these 3D printers, somebody wants medicine, can come to the community center and the pharmacist over there can make and give him that. Just in old days, our doctors used to give us the cough syrups and some of the medicines on his own. Very interesting.
And I think there's a lot of pharmacists that will be out of a job. As a former pharmacist, I'm one of the guys. But maybe there's a new job for them as well to, in the future, not only look at the combinations of all different kinds of medication, but look at the different kinds of combinations for technology and data. Because they know how to look at different combinations and, well, in the future, it's not about pills anymore alone, it's also about data and technology.
Doctor, as you mentioned that the generic market is providing a cheaper medicine, the $10 of the $1,000 of medicines we are able to provide. My concern is how we are able to manage the quality. So if API cost is having very minor difference, then where we are maintaining that cost, how we are able to provide the cheaper medicine.
Okay, so the cost from a branded product and generic is very simple. Brands has to do a lot of clinical trials. That's where they spend billions of dollars. They have patents, and that's what they are taking from you, a $3 a pill or $10 a pill or $1,000 a pill. Generics don't have to do clinical trials. Generics have to just, if the brand product is 10 milligram of atorvastatin calcium taken as a tablet, as oral route, we are just supposed to make that no better, no worst. Only by equivalence. So overall cost of developing a generic can be between a couple of $1 million, from $1 million to $3 million, depending on the product. Whereas the brand, the new chemical entity is billions of dollars. That's where, and once the patent expire, you come up as a generic, exact equivalent, it gets substituted in US, in most of the countries. Automatic substitute. So you don't have to build your brand. Unlike in India, you have a branded generic, or in most of the countries, you have branded generic. In US or in most of the UK and most of the European countries, it automatically gets substituted. So doctor, if he writes something, the pharmacist when dispensing has to give the cheaper option available to him. So that's how your overall cost of that medicine goes down, because API, again, the technology improves. So by the time the innovator has started making the API, he might be having a $2,000 API. You can make the API, same API in $200 once it becomes generic. So that's another advantage.
They get 20 years as a protection. So generally they take 20 years to recover the clinical trial costs, or it's a kind of monopoly for 20 years to give high rate medicines.
And get 20 years. They don't get 20 years because 20 years is something, when they discovered something, they file the patent. It takes them 10 years or 14 years to get the product approved and start selling in the market. So the effective patent life is 6 to 7 years. It gets added up by 5 more years in US and in Europe and most of the countries. That's where they get 10 to 11 years.
Okay, so mostly what you are saying that the cost for clinical trial is the more, and that's what they're recovering it, right?
Yeah, yes. This is very important questions, how we make sure that the generics are equal to the brand, which is, and the cost difference is really very high between them. You have three very important issues. First of all, the manufacturing process, which is most of the regulatory, they call it GMP, which is good manufacturing practice. It's really well maintained. They have a lot of standards. Either you do generic, you do brand, you have the same GMP. This is very important for the process of manufacturing. We have before that is the file itself. which is a lot of QC, quality control testing for the medications comparing to the brand. And also we have something called bioequivalency studies, that the same concentration of medications that really proven with the healthy volunteers that the same milligrams are available compared to the brand. That they have a lot of tests that make sure, especially of well-regulated countries, make sure these generics are really equal to the brand. But the cost, as Dr. He said, the cost of brand versus generic is really tremendously different, which is 1 to 2 million. Some of the medications cost billions. But this is the problem that we have it. The issue of most of the brand companies, they like to keep more the patency protection. That's why when you go to the healthcare, costs is not because of not available of medication, because of the patency issues that you cannot break it. Otherwise, this Western regulatory and countries that they will pressure all of these countries who break the patency issues because they have a WTO agreement to protect these companies from patency. If you see, for example, when South Africa with the AIDS problem and Cibla and all of these, the cost is there is really mandated by these big pharma companies to protect their benefits for longer time that they can do. I understand this, but if you see how much profit that they make, which is usually from the bucket of the patients who needed the medications. Yep. Our rule in pharmaceutical, we try to make it affordable to those patients in order to reduce what kind of things that we have very good and quality medications with affordable prices. This is the main mission that most of generic that they are doing to helping of reduction of the cost. But still, for the biosimilar, for example, they did something else to protect themselves more. They said, no, we need you to do clinical studies. If I want to do clinical studies for biosimilar, the cost it will be more than 50 million US dollars. That means I cannot compete them on the price. But that's why it will be very difficult. They will protect their rights or their benefits for longer years because of this kind of regulation. They make it for biosimilar, which is, I believe, we don't have to, because we have now a lot of things that we make sure a quality product without a clinical studies. And that's why the cost of biological, I don't think it will be like the small molecules. It will take time in order to reduce it. Most of the top, most expensive medications are biologic. And we cannot, as a generic company, to go there because of the clinical studies, which is done by the regulatory bodies who are protecting most of the companies. This is what is happening now in pharma market, which is very, very difficult to reduce the cost for the coming period of years. You know, what I am seeing that the cost, it will increase from 10% and more.
Thank you.
Even for generics.
Thank you.
Generics is, because if you see the top, the value is different than the volume. Generics as a volume is in the United States from 80 to 90%. But the value of this generic is nothing compared of the value of the biosimilars. Most of the patients cost more than $1 million, but because of the medication that they use it for biologic or CAR T cells or all of these. We cannot do it because there are a lot of things protected from the regulatory body that you cannot do it because you need a lot of investment in order to produce similar to those branded company. And this is the protection I think should done, is not by the technology, it's done by the regulatory bodies that most of countries, they protect all of these. Although most of these products who unregulated market, if they produce the biosimilar, they have the similar effect without a clinical studies. But we cannot produce it because our regulatory said you have to have a clinical study. But that's why the cost, it will be protected for more year, more than the small molecules like the chemical, the generic, the biologic, it will be burden on. By the way, in 2024 or 25, 50% of the cost of the medications coming from biologic. That means biologic is coming more to have more burden on the cost issue, and also it's protected for longer year that you cannot do it and reduce the cost.
Thank you so much for this panel discussion. A big round of applause. Yet another fantastic session. We'd love to thank our panelists.